The Great Resignation, ghosting, and now we have Resenteeism. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is the website you want to go to learn all about us, and our Tuesday podcast, TFG Unbuttoned, which we urge you to subscribe to. Oh, no, sorry. Like.
Follow.
There was something about subscribe. Yeah,
Follow.
Thank you, Tim. So, yes, follow that. And if you're already listening to the Focus Group via one of your favorite podcast platforms, you're probably already getting TFG Unbuttoned. We want to thank Deep Discount for being a partner of ours here on the Focus Group. We're going to be visiting with them later in the show. And a quick reminder, the Oscars are coming up, so that's always a good opportunity to get the titles that you haven't seen before the rewards. So here we are after President's Day. Bob and I went down to visit Rehoboth. We had a wonderful time. Hello, Mark and Carl. Delicious dinner. And we saw Patrick and Howard. Great time. It was a wonderful time. And, of course, Tim and Richard are superb hosts. So
all the usual suspects.
Yeah.
Not all of them, some of them. You missed a couple, but...
We didn't see Bunky.
No, it was Bunky and Kate. No. So it was a short visit, but it was good.
Oh, we had a great time. Lots of fun. And
we need to come when Funland's opened so that you can go play the horses.
Bob's favorite game is this thing on the boardwalk where you sit and you roll these balls up, and whatever number the ball drops through is how many, I don't know, inches.
Steps the horse moves.
This horse moves from the right side to the left. And watching Bob play this thing, I could feed him dollars for all day because he goes crazy.
He didn't win, or did he win a little tiny?
He came close, and then it's all random because everybody's sitting next to you doing the ball. It's just crazy. It's a lot of fun. That was our favorite part of that boardwalk. And then, of course, Tim describes the what was it? The pirate ship that swings really close to the condos.
Yeah, which is a Airbnb house, and people are surprised when they rent it, and pretty much I think it's within 6 inches that swinging pirate ship comes
up
right
to the window.
Yeah. I would like that. And then I said we have to go in the haunted house there. Everybody talks about the haunted house, so we'll have to go through it and see what that's about. So
well, what they say about the haunted house is it's, am I right when everybody says it's like the worst?
It's kitschy. So, and people remember it, and it's not changed in 50 years or whatever. So it's so that what do you call it? Analog technology is probably
old, like mechanical
Boo.
things. Boo.
Boo. Boo. Oh.
So in other words, it's not as sophisticated as Haunted Mansion down at Disney World.
Probably not. It doesn't need to be,
Correct.
So the old Haunted Mansion. I saw somebody had posted about Disney. We were talking about it over the weekend, how much it costs to get into the park now.
Hugely expensive, for a day pass,
So if you took a family of 4 down there for a long weekend, it's got to be a few $1,000s. Easy, right?
And that's you could spend hundreds of dollars just to get into the park, but then you have to deal with all what you're going to spend in the park, right? And then there's the hotels, and not far away, if you're with the kiddies, there's Universal Studios. You're gonna drop a bundle to go see Harry Potter or something, right?
Is it like Las Vegas? I haven't been to Disney in a while, but is it like Las Vegas where if things are running late, you just grab a wheelchair and you get to the head of the line?
They do have all this stuff. So yes, if you are in fact differently abled or you're up, you're sick or something, they do.
Oh, is that what it is now? Differently abled.
Differently abled. Yeah,
I can't say handicapped.
Can you? I guess
signs still say it down here. The signs still say handicap parking.
Handicap. Oh, that's true.
Think.
Okay. Yeah. So if you have an issue with mobility, there's one for you too.
I do.
You would be moved along courteously to a different line that moves you so there are 2 parallels, and the one with then they'll feed you in quicker. But there was a thing that you could buy these, I think it was like Fast Pass, or I don't know what it was called, but you could reserve a spot online for some rides. I'm not a Disney aficionado, so if I'm saying anything wrong, please, who knows Disney's Romaine Patterson, right?
Yeah. Well, a lot of those folks that are Uber fans. No, I just remember in Vegas the cabbie when he had said to me how he said if you're running late and you don't want to wait in the TSA line, request a chair I said, what do you
Oh, at
mean
the
a chair? He
airport.
goes, no, get a wheelchair. I said, well, what I just tell him you got bad hemorrhoids. You can't walk. I'll move you right through. He goes, you get right through security. Right. So I thought, well, it's an option, right? I played that game with Amtrak. If Amtrak was crowded, I would go to the red cap guys. So if it was in Manhattan or, if there were a lot of delays or something, you go to the red cap guys, you give them $5. They take you down 2 minutes early and get you on the train before they let the masses in.
They situate you.
That's always
the
a great,
train, right?
Yeah. And I've told that to everybody. I'm like, listen, I just did it. Last time I was in Boston, I did it. I said, here's how we're going to bypass this line.
Red cap.
The red cap. And all we had were briefcases. But I was like, no, can you take us down to the, certainly. Here's $10. Let's go.
That's a good one. I mean, because look, the other alternative is to stand in line and get on the train and either stand, right?
Or in New York where you don't line up. It's the only place in the world I've seen people not line up for the train is New York City. People
mass,
mob.
like,
You can't
boom.
control the crowd. Meanwhile, in D.C. and Philly, it's somewhat very civilized that they get in a line and you go down step single file or down the escalator. Not in New York.
I think it might be changing. It changed a bit with the Moynihan,
The
new
Moynihan
train
station.
hall. Yeah, the last time I was in there, when I was cutting through, I had a meeting on the west side. I thought I'll walk through the train station because it's really pretty. And I noticed that people were a little more like Philadelphia, where they do in fact line up. And if you're trying to cut the line, you get a lot of laser-like dirty stairs.
You know what? The last time you had taken me to the train, I was up for something. Might have been Comic-Con.
Yeah, it was Comic-Con.
And we had gone through the Moynihan station, and I went down the escalator. But you know what ended up happening? I had to walk and walk and walk and walk because the
Towards
train
the
still went under the old station.
Penn Station.
And people had all gotten on the train there. So I wonder when they're going to stop that.
You must have been miserable because you'd been on your feet all day already.
Well, not only that, but we like to get down and get your seat.
Yeah.
And so everybody that was over at the old train station was already on the train because it was sitting there. So, yeah, I wonder when they're going to change that.
I don't know.
There's nowhere to sit in that Moynihan station. Did they change that?
There are some waiting rooms, but I think you have to be ticketed, just like the old Penn. Tim and I used to be better at navigating Amtrak when we took it every week. I mean,
Little tricks.
You had the whole thing figured out. There was a sub level at Penn Station we'd hang out on, and the minute they announced that train, we were already halfway down the stairs. And
Yeah, you'd scoot through by where the commuter lines were and then get on.
I missed the little sushi place. I think I might still be there, but that if we didn't have time for like a normal lunch, we would go and get the little sushi thing and.
Stand at the table. Oh, the good old days, John, when money was coming in. New York was home. Home to the studio. Now we're sitting
Fire.
here.
There's a fire hose of money, like the money gun, spraying everywhere.
Now we're sitting in our homes doing this show, but it's fine.
It's better here than So if you're new to the show, we do a little banter as we've been doing. We have a segment called Caught My Eye. Tim and I bring some interesting articles to the show, followed by a visit with our partner, Deep Discount. Then we have a break, Business Birthday, the only show in the universe that does business birthdays. And Shop Talk this week is, I had to pronounce that a couple times, and I think I'm doing it right because it's a double E, Resenteeism.
Yes, and I actually went to and found a video where a number of experts were talking about it, and in fact, that is how you say it.
Resenteeism. So it's not ghosting. It's not the great resignation. It's not, now it's resenteeism, which is actually the tail end of all this. So that's later in our show. But for the moment, Mr. Bennett, what caught your eye?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Well, John, this popped up in the Advocate on their online version. I got there through another site, but it came from our friends at Advocate. The headline is "Penises are growing bigger fast." And I couldn't help but use the ad that you famously had created for Absolute, which if you're watching our video, you'll see it says, "In an absolute world, a ruler in every marking is 8 inches." So it was
Because
very,
in a
very
perfect
clever.
world, everybody would be 8.
Well, it's almost a perfect world, John, because apparently your penis is getting bigger. Well, penises are getting bigger for men now. Well, I don't know who else would have a penis. A new study out of Stanford has found that while the last 30 years men's sperm counts and testosterone levels have decreased, their penises have gotten longer. Michael Eisenberg, he's a medical doctor, he's a professor of urology at Stanford in the medical school. He said he's concerned about it because the declining sperm quality and testosterone levels are having a problem or having an issue for males' reproductive health. So this finding that that sperm levels and testosterone counts were going down made him wonder if it was also affecting the man's member in the unit. So he expected that that penises were getting smaller because of this loss of testosterone hormone. But in fact, he was wrong. He said researchers compiled studies, 75 studies since 1942, and included 55,761 men in this study, and they observed that there's actually a 24% increase in the average erect penis length over 29 years. So they said that no one has ever really taken a systematic look at measurement. They said, given the trends, given the trends that we've seen in other measures of men's reproductive health, we thought that we would see a decline in penile length. And a lot of it they thought would be due to some environmental exposure. So they conducted a meta-analysis. So they did 3 different measurements: flaccid, stretched, and erect. And they created this comprehensive database. Do you want to guess what the average length of a penis is now? Erect penis. So the erect penis is it's grown. Do you think what the average is now?
It could actually be 6, but I thought that in the old days the 5.5 was.
Well, you're right,
standard.
John. You're pretty good. So you know the numbers. So the average penis was 4.8 inches erect, and now it is 6 inches. It's grown that much in 29 years. And they said because human reproduction is essential to preserve humankind, there's a huge concern about this development. They said, he quoted, "If we're seeing this fast change, it means that something powerful is happening to our bodies. We should try to confirm these findings, and if confirmed, we need to determine the cause of these changes." He said several factors could contribute to the changes, including exposure to pesticides and chemicals. He said there's a number of chemicals in our personal hygiene products that interact with our body's natural hormones. Many of these chemicals can interrupt hormone levels in the environment and food. He said that some of these increased exposure to chemicals have also been linked to boys and girls going through puberty at a younger age. So there's a concern about this. So they're now requesting, so next time you go to the doctor, ask them to measure your penis. They're now suggesting that doctors need to do this. Aside from also measuring your height and weight for every man when you go to get your physical, he's now suggesting that the doctors measure the penis.
And that's that.
So next time you get your physical, have your doctor say, "Hey, Doc, can you measure my unit? Let me know what's what." 3 different stages.
Yeah, but then that means you have to be. It's almost like going to be a sperm donor or something. So you ask
Well, I guess he
your
wants to
doctor.
collect the data. You're probably right. He's probably going to work with a few different health systems to say, "Here's what we're going to do."
Because
and,
if you're in
compile
the
list.
last thing I'm doing in my doctor's office is having an erection, but that's perhaps just
Well, there's
me.
3 levels, John.
There's
You
flaccid,
need to
stretched,
flaccid, stretched, and erect.
erect. Oh, I could get 2 measurements. Okay.
So, but I just thought, once again, I guess there's, I'm sure a number of our listeners will hear from them that said they'll volunteer for the job. But,
It's
that's what
an
caught
interesting
my eye.
stat, though. It's while you were going through what he was talking about, chemicals in the environment or a couple other issues that could affect this, I was reminded of the fact that our ancestors were slighter and smaller, right? So if you go to like a colonial home or something, you know for a fact, you look at the clothing, everything, we were smaller, right? So our diets,
Well, the
everything.
doorways where you had to
Yeah.
duck through the doorways. I mean, they do say that because of animals, and I guess some vegetables, but mostly animals that we eat that have these growth hormones in them. There is some people that feel that has affected the humans. So that growth hormone has been, when you consume the meat or consume the animal muscle or flesh or whatever, that you're ingesting those hormones, right?
And somehow it's working its way into your body, right? Yeah, through the
Yeah.
digestive system. So interesting.
Yeah. So what
Mine
caught
could
your
not
eye?
be caught my eye could not be further from the length of the male penis. It involves woodpeckers. Maybe
it's
there's
close.
maybe there's a connect. Now that I think about it, yeah. This one is woodpeckers stash 700 pounds of nuts in California home. And if you're watching on YouTube, the photograph is literally like a flood of acorns in someone's house. Well, yeah, they happen to be acorns. So here's the deal. Birds stored in a home in Santa Rosa, a Santa Rosa house's chimney, all these things over the course of a year. So an exterminator went to this house. He was inspecting a home for mealworms. I wasn't sure what they were when he discovered something nuts. Tens of thousands came cascading out from behind a bedroom wall. They had been stashed there by acorn woodpeckers. Now, I have never heard of this variety of the woodpecker. It's a peculiar little bird with a shock of red feathers on their head who are prodigious acorn collectors. Normally, the birds store thousands of acorns in small holes they drill in dying tree stumps, which they protect with outsized pluck. I don't know what that means, but a woman says, but that instinct to fit an acorn in a hole and store it is pretty strong with these little guys. In this case, it appears that the woodpeckers, who had initially tried storing their nuts in the house's wood siding until a previous owner wrapped the house in vinyl, began stacking them inside the chimney. Because the nuts kept falling into a wall cavity, the birds couldn't access them, so they kept filling the gap with more and more acorns. They're a bit of a hoarder, so this went on for a while. Generations of woodpeckers can take up to 100 years to perforate large trees with 50,000 acorn cubbyholes.
Oh my gosh.
The birds form polyamorous families with up to 7 males and 4 females who are joined by other relatives that help when they raise the young, and they all, of course, collect acorns and stash them. So in this case, the birds kept putting the acorns in the chimney. They would go back, they're not there, more and more and more. So the guy, at the end of the day, the guy had to take out, I think it was, what does it say here? It was like tons of garbage. They couldn't save the acorns because they were mixed in with fiberglass insulation and some rat droppings. Doesn't sound very appetizing,
No.
right? But they took out, I think it was 700 pounds.
So 700 pounds of nuts.
Yeah, 700 pounds. And I was looking for the stat of how many garbage bags they filled because that one kind of made my eyes pop too. But so there you have it.
Well, it's funny. I'm glad you picked this because I saw this story and I was going to suggest maybe we do it for Caught My Eye, which we do on Tuesdays, or for TFG Unbuttoned, which we do on Tuesdays. And so I'm glad you picked this because I thought this was a funny story as well. And I wondered why they picked the chimney. And I guess it was just
It's a hole.
Yeah.
Right? And a pretty regular looking one. Oh, let's put the nut down there.
So how did they get? So there must have been a flaw in the chimney or a hole. So then they would go in and then they would get into a wall. I guess that's what happened, right? Because the picture here looks like they cut a hole in the wall and they've all come out. So what a mess.
Say they had been stashed.
Yeah, you said they went into a wall.
They tried the house's wood siding and then because the nuts kept falling into a wall cavity. So you're right about this. So that means the chimney had something wrong with it, right?
Yeah. And you would think if they had lit the chimney that it would have, it might have had a nice smell. I don't know.
There's one picture I should have used. It was too snarky. It was the exterminator laying on this pile of nuts, looking into this hole, and of course it was like plumber's crack or something, but I thought, that's
I'd have used that 1, 2, 3.
But I thought, well, I'll give him a pass, but it was total plumber's crack, exterminator's crack, whatever you want to call it. So yeah,
that was a good one.
700 pounds of nuts over 70 garbage bags or something crazy like that. I mean, industrious little birds, right?
Well, you think about how long that took.
Mm-hmm. Years. It was years to build it up. And that was in someone's house. And it had changed hands. An inspector missed that too. So anyway. Hey, as I mentioned earlier, Deep Discount is a partner of ours here on the Focus Group, and we would love for you to visit them by going to focusgroupradio.com and clicking on the Deep Discount logo. We have a sale going on, and it's obviously, I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast that the Oscars are coming up, and that's a great time to see the movies you might not have seen that have been nominated for a whole bunch of awards, from Best Picture to technical awards. So it's an award-winning film and nominee sale. So, Mr. Bennett, what did you pick for this week?
So I was poking through. There were a lot of great things there, and I could have picked many, but I saw this, and I thought this would be a good thing for someone to have in their collection because I'll tell you what. So it's Meryl Streep 8-movie collection. And
I love that you picked this because she's won. Yeah,
well,
right?
and she's become she is our. I don't know if it's a stretch to say she's our Bette Davis of our generation in
terms
like one
of the great actresses.
Yeah, the ubiquitous actors and all kinds of great films that we know of. And in this 8-box set, a collection of 8 of her movies, People Robert Redford, Bruce Willis, Goldie Hawn, Kevin Bacon, Renee Zellweger, Uma Thurman, Steve Martin, Alec Baldwin, just to name a few. But the set, you can get the box set on DVD for $22.98. So you get all 8 movies. The 8-disc set includes Out of Africa, which won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Director. Death Becomes Her, The River from 1994, which was her first action role. One True Thing, which was based on Anna Quinlan novel. Prime, where she is a Manhattan psychiatrist. Mamma Mia, which we all know
Abba,
from
Abba, Abba.
from Abba, Abba, Abba. And then It's Complicated, which was a rom-com she did in 2009. Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, which is set 5 years after the 2008 movie she did. And so those are the 8 movies. And so I thought, what a great thing to add to your collection and get them all in one collection of Meryl Streep movies. Of course, she's done many, many more, but I thought this was a good compilation that they curated.
I think it's a great pick, and because it crosses a lot of things, award-winning, the picture, the actress, it's great. Good job. I picked a movie that I haven't seen in a while, but I really love, and I think it was like a perfect vehicle for George Clooney, and it's called Michael Clayton. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It is written and directed by Tony Gilroy, and Tony Gilroy recently had a really great series on Disney Plus called Andor. It takes place in the Star Wars universe. He's not a Star Wars fan, hence that series is really cool because it's more of a political drama set in that universe. And it reminded me that he did this incredible movie called Michael Clayton. And Clooney plays attorney. He's a fixer, a go-to guy in a powerful New York law firm, and they go to him when they need a mess swept under the rug. But he's handed a crisis that he can't really fix because the firm's top litigator in a $3 billion case has gone from being an advocate for the firm to a whistleblower against it. So there's all these corporate forces, and it's a great cast. Tilda Swinton's in it. She plays a corporate attorney who is just ice in her veins. Really well done. So I picked Michael Clayton, and if you haven't seen it, I think you might really enjoy it.
Did you see this when it came out?
Yes.
It says it came out too. Did you see it in the theater?
Saw it in the theater, and we also saw it on one of the pay channels at some point. But really enjoyed it. Gripping. It's a good political corporate drama. Really well done. And Clooney, George Clooney is one of those actors who, it's a George Clooney thing. Whatever role he's playing, it's George Clooney in the role as opposed. This was a perfect fit for him. And our release this week is The Fabelmans, which I believe is up for some awards, right?
Yes, I believe so.
And this is a deeply personal portrait of 20th century American childhood, of the childhood of Steven Spielberg's. And it's The Fabelmans, coming-of-age story about a young man's discovery of a shattering family secret and an exploration of the power of movies to help see the truth about each other and ourselves. It's inspired by his own childhood. It's written, and Fabelmans is written by Spielberg and Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright Tony Kushner, which you guys might know from Angels in America, which is how I knew him, and 2 other plays called Caroline or Change. Oscar nominations for screenplay, a couple other things. So that's out now, and I have not seen it, and I'd like to. Are you gonna see the Fabelmans?
I've not seen it either. I think I've only seen 1 or 2 of the nominated movies this year, so I need to catch
I'm way
up.
behind, and it's because we're not going to theaters as much, but I'm glad that they release them now pretty quickly after their theater release. So it's like like Tim was just saying, if you've only seen 1 or 2 of the nominated films, I would cut to deep discount and pick up some of this. I had this crazy idea. I thought, get 4 friends together, each one buys a movie, and then you swap them.
That's a great idea. Or do a binge weekend of the movies, which some people do. So as John mentioned, head over to focusgroupradio.com, click on the deep discount logo. It's award-winning films and nominee sale, some of them up to 60% off. So it's a great time to either add to your collection or pick up a gift or a hostess gift for a friend, or return something that you might have borrowed and forgot about, which I tend to do with movies sometimes as well.
Yeah.
So I had picked I'd picked Meryl Streep, the 8-movie collection, which you can get on DVD for $22.98. John picked a great George Clooney movie, Michael Clayton, which is available on Blu-ray for the great price of $11.79. And the new release this week is The Fabelmans, which is up for Oscar award this year at $27.99 and 4K Ultra HD. I don't have that quality of a machine, I don't think.
Are you just DVD?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have that high? Do you have the high?
We're getting ready to go to 4K because 4K you need a 4K television for as well to really get the resolution. But I'm Blu-ray at the level, and I love Blu-ray.
Great. So head over to Deep Discount, and you'll be able to own your passion over there. You'll get there again by going to focusgroupradio.com. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got a business birthday. Plus, we have a shop talk that John had found called
Resenteeism.
We have a shop talk coming up, so stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is the only thing you need to know about the show. Everything's there, our video, our audio, and TFG Unbuttoned, our Tuesday podcast. And, of course, a link to Deep Discount, which you might want to be clicking on right away to get the movies we talked about before the break. And there you have it. So, without further ado, we have a business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So after 15 years of doing these business birthdays, John, you have to really dig.
Well, because we're in a narrow band, you might want to expand it to the week of, right?
Well, I thought of that, because if you figured if you do one, we must have gone through the weeks how many times?
We
Over
had
15 years.
9 years or 8 years of Saturdays.
Seven times through. So, yeah. So anyway, in order not to repeat, because there's, someone who was probably the founder of Morgan Stanley or something that's birthdays today.
That's not as exciting.
That's not exciting. So we picked, this week we've got Robert Wadlow, born February 22nd, 1918, sadly died at age 22. His claim to fame, he's known as the Alton Giant and the Giant of Illinois. He was an American who was the tallest person in recorded history. He was born and raised in Alton, Illinois, which is a small town near St. Louis, Missouri. At the time of his death, he weighed 439 pounds and was 8 foot 11.1 inches.
8 feet 11? Oh, my God.
And
Tim, is the picture that you provided, if you're watching on YouTube, Tim provided some pictures. One's like a sepia tone.
Right.
Is that his father next to him?
Yeah, he used to travel the country doing personal appearances for a shoe company because obviously he needed to have shoes made. And his shoe size was 37 AA.
My God, really?
So because he was such a tall person, and this is where the business aspect comes into him. And so we'll get to why there was, if you're watching on the video, some of the shoe comparison, and there's a like a mannequin of him. He continued to grow throughout his adulthood, and they blamed it on a pituitary gland, and they said it results in abnormally high levels of human growth hormone. They said this would never happen again because they figured out ways to control this. So if there was someone who was growing at this sort of rapid height, and we were able to control it with hormones. For instance, when he was 1 year old, he was already 3 foot 6 inches, weighed 45 pounds.
1 year old, 3 foot 6.
Right. At 18 months, he was 4 foot 3 inches. At 5 years old, he was 5'6". At 8 years old, he was 6 feet. He was 7 feet at 12. Was 8 feet 4 inches at 18. And then when he died, 8 foot 11.1 inches, and still growing. He died at a young age. But he, what ended up happening is he had gone to school, like all kids go to school, and he obviously was quite tall. He didn't want to play basketball. They were afraid he was going to get hurt. They said he was a very gentle, nice man, nice person, nice kid, and tried to act as if he wasn't as tall as tall as he was.
Yeah.
And this was way before we had American with Disabilities Act. So the schools had to try to accommodate him and put wood blocks on his desk and just try to work with having a kid like him enrolled in the school. And then when he went off to college, he said when he was a teenager, he and his brother and sister started a soft drink stand in front of their yard. And people would come by, but they weren't necessarily thirsty. They wanted to see how tall he was. So
That poor guy.
He was smart enough to say that before they'd give him the drink, or they'd make them pay first, and then he would stand up. So in other words, he wasn't just going to stand up to see him. He didn't want to be handled
Right.
and
How many cups would that be? Yeah.
viewed as a freak. Right.
How many
So
lemonades do you want?
they said he'd make over $100 in the summer. This is the 1920s, 30s, so that was great money. He required leg braces when walking. He never used a wheelchair, and so he had met somebody along the way and doing some work, and he met someone from Ringling Brothers Circus, and they wanted to use him in the circus, and particularly, very famous. They had freak shows then.
Yeah, like
And-
Tom Thumb, the
Right.
bearded lady, the whole bit.
He refused to do that. He said, "I will not be a sideshow. I will not be part of the sideshow. I'll be in center ring, but I want to be dressed in my everyday clothes. I want it to be dignified, and I'm not going to wear a top hat and tails. I'm just going to come in the clothes that I normally wear, and I'll be in center ring." So he did that for a while, and traveled the country as the world's tallest man, or one of the world's tallest people. Until 1938, he began a promotional tour with the International Shoe Company, which would provide him shoes free of charge. And again, he would go to these openings or to these promotional events in his regular street clothes. And he saw himself as working in advertising because of this, because he was not exhibiting as a freak. He actually was opening new stores in town. He worked for Peter's Shoe Company. He worked for the International Shoe Company. He also worked for a company that sold caps, like little boys' caps. He began making appearances when he was 13 years old, wearing these. I guess they were like ball caps, or not ball caps.
wonder if they
Those
were
ones
like-
that they wear. God,
Or
why
the
am I
ones they used to
forgetting
wear in the
the
Little
name?
Rascals.
Yes,
The little
and-
beanie things, right?
Yeah, it's a stick. It was for a number of department stores, Stick Bear and Fuller stores. And so he made these appearances, as I said, with Peters and PR, visited over 800 towns, 41 states, and would come in and help open a shoe store or new line of shoes or something. And made a great living from doing that, from doing appearances. The other thing was that, he said obviously he needed shoes. So what they would do is they would also have on display, which there are some still in existence, of his actual shoe, which was a 37. If you're watching the video, you'll see what size shoe that was. And they also have some of the life-size statues of him that are erected in this museum in Alton, Illinois. So it's so he died tragically. He was at an event. And it was a professional appearance in Manistee, which is in Michigan. And he had a faulty leg brace, which irritated his ankle, and it led to an infection. So he had to go to the hospital, and they gave him a blood transfusion, and then he ended up getting an infection and died in his sleep on July 15th at 22 years old. It said his coffin measured 10 feet 9 inches long and it weighed over 1,000 pounds and required 12 pallbearers and 8 assistants to maneuver. And he was buried at the Oakwood Cemetery in Madison County, Illinois. So it's sad, have to die so young. But he what I liked about him is he didn't allow himself to be a quote unquote circus freak.
Yeah.
He tried to live a normal life and used to his advantage his height to do promotional appearances and stuff, because he really couldn't. They said he really couldn't sit at a desk. He would hold books and things like you would hold a little piece of paper, because his hands were 2 to 3 times the size of anyone else's hands. They did say he read, this is right up your alley, he read over 300 books a year.
Wow.
His favorite were adventure stories. And
I just wonder
thrillers.
about, first there's the loving parents who have no way of controlling this, right? The growth rate. And
Right.
someone that size, I imagine that had he lived beyond 22, he might have been dealing with a lot of other health issues, possibly. He'd be circulatory, heart, already walking with leg braces for stability. I bet that it would have just gotten even more challenging as it went on. And when you say that he had an infection from this bad leg brace, I guess that might have been like a sepsis thing, right?
Yeah, they talked about him having, of course, health issues, or they tried to figure it out, right? They tried to see what's going on here. They had no idea. They knew that this was a pituitary gland issue, but in terms of trying to control it, science wasn't there yet. And so it's interesting because you have to feel sorry for him. I mean, he said he had to get used at a young age of people just staring at him, even when he tried to just do normal things that little kids would do. The cap I see here was called the Eddie Cantor adjustable cap, which was a popular cap then for boys, is what he
The Eddie
promoted
Cantor?
it. Eddie Cantor adjustable cap. 13 years old. It's very popular. It's like one of those schoolboy, caps you would wear that a driver wore. But so that was our birthday. Robert Wadlow, born today, February 22nd. He died at 22 in July of 1940.
Wow. I'm glad that he made the most of it with a positive attitude.
Yeah.
What more can you say, right?
Yeah. And they said he was just a very nice person, nice human. They said he ate normal meals. It wasn't like he ate a lot of food either. It wasn't because he was so big. And I know what a lot of you were asking. We talked about penis sizes earlier with Stanford. I had a couple people, when I said I was doing this, wanted to know if with his 37 size shoe and his big hands and everything, how everything else was. And of course, there was nothing to talk.
Not from that time period, but it reminds me of Young Frankenstein when Gene Wilder is sitting and he's like planning the monster, and Terry Garr's like, well, if he's enormous, he must have a huge schwanzsticker. Yeah, there you go. So, you could make an assumption.
Well, you would think, right?
Yeah. I mean,
big feet, big hands, big gloves, big shoes.
It's not like one body part's not going to scale up like the rest. So,
well, that would be interesting.
Yeah. All right. As we for shop talk, as we mentioned at the top of the show, this word I had to actually look it up and say it a few times. But resenteeism is the latest trend plaguing workers. And so what's going on is, we had quiet quitting, we had the Great Resignation. We had, all these little terms for people moving and changing jobs. And now they've claimed that this is the natural successor to quiet quitting, which is resenteeism. And that's people who stayed in their jobs, might have wanted to move, didn't. Now they're like other people left around them, and they're stuck in jobs that they feel they're undervalued, they're underappreciated, and worry about their futures and worry that they're never going to be happy in their jobs. Well, that was an interesting statement right there. But so they say here in this article that it's closely related to quiet quitting, which rose to prominence via TikTok in the later half of 2022. But this is subtly different because you're staying behind, you were left behind, and now you're like, do I really want to be here? I'm really unhappy. This was one of those interesting things that I guess if you're a corporate worker, everybody's encountering this on some level.
Well, yeah, they're staying in jobs that they don't want, in a place where they don't want to be.
Yeah.
Right. But they're need to, because maybe they're saying the job market isn't as great as we thought, the pasture isn't as green as we thought. And I laughed because somewhere along the way here it said that, particularly for the younger generation, it said many felt their bosses didn't care about them as people, but just as workers. And I typed next to that, "Welcome to the real world."
Yeah.
If you
what's new?
Yeah, I thought, come on. And so you and we had a discussion about this over the weekend during your visit, and I think this is part of this whole issue of people getting back to work, people getting back to the office, people trying to engage as a work unit again, right? Rather than doing all these remote meetings and Zoom meetings. We actually talked to people who said even people now that are in the same building won't go to conference rooms, that they'll sit in their cube or sit in their office and still do a Zoom even though they're all in the same place, which I find that very odd.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Here's a little stat for you. They said here that more than half, 66% of millennials are satisfied at their jobs per a 2022 survey. But they went and looked at a software company specifically, and in that company, half of the people in those jobs said they wouldn't wish it on their worst enemy. So that would be what we would call poison, right? I mean, that's a
Right.
poison environment. If you don't want to wish your job on your worst enemy, why would you even stay? But again, mortgage, healthcare is a huge one. People don't want to lose benefits, right? So this is it's an interesting thing. I don't know. I think we are so good lately at giving new words to things that we've had in the past. Like, wouldn't you say that from a resenteeism point of view, like you've hated jobs before? I know
Right.
for a fact you've been in jobs that you despised, right?
Yeah.
And the people might have been nice, management was horrible, you didn't like what you were doing, right?
Yeah. But you either you have to weigh the good with the bad and decide how you're going to do it and handle it. So they say if you feel like that, if you're in one of these jobs that you don't necessarily like, or you feel like you're not being valued and so forth, that the author recommends you go to HR and communicate your concerns and needs, and identify what you need from them to make your job more fulfilling and keep you motivated and keep things in perspective. I don't know.
Did you read that and just raise an eyebrow?
Well,
Like, I wonder how many people are listening right now. I mean, I know we have a lot of listeners
I
who are
to
in
teach the world
to sing. I know we have a lot of listeners who are in HR, and they deal with a lot of issues. But one of them is, I don't know that they deal with this every day, of someone coming and saying, I'd like Mary to smile at me. I want my boss to give me a gold star, and I really don't like my job. I mean, right?
What am I going to do? He doesn't appreciate me, what I do here.
I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was complaining about something. I said, "Why don't you go to HR?" And he just rolls his eyes. He goes, "That's not going to solve a thing." He said, "I'm not going to go to HR." And so that must be an attitude that permeates some of this as well, right?
Well, I've said this to Richard about some issues he has. He's had along the way, a friend of ours. And I've said the same thing. I came from, good or bad, my time with Subaru, the Human Resources Department was very much a partner with the groups that they service, to the point where they would even attend events that we did or advertising shoots or something, just so they would understand exactly the full breadth of the job,
Yeah.
right, of what you did and how travel was and so forth. And I think that was very helpful, because if there ever were issues, you could certainly have them as a sounding board or someone who at least understood what was going on. But so many HR departments now, you're exactly what you said, when you talk to friends and you bring it up, it's almost as if it's just a cost item that's a nuisance, that they're not overly effective. So
One friend of mine was in HR for retail, a big high-end fancy retail chain. And I asked him one day, like, what's the big thing? Or is it finding the right person for the job? Is it like, going through No. It's resolving employee conflicts. It's discovering that an executive has a drug or alcohol problem, and how do we navigate that? It's discovering that, he went through a litany of stuff that was like totally off my radar. And I'm like, this is what you deal with? He goes, oh, yeah, that's what we deal with every day. So
gosh,
I'm not sure that if you resent your job, that's high on their list if they're dealing with employees not showing up or helping people put their lives back together if they have a drug or alcohol problem. Yeah,
no, you become a guidance counselor, right? I mean, which is what a lot of managers become as well.
or a referee.
Right. So look for the latest buzzword in corporate America right now called resenteeism.
There you
Is that
go.
what
You nailed that.
Resenteeism. Resenteeism. It's almost Aretha could spell it.
Almost.
She was almost.
Yeah.
So, hey, thanks for joining us here in the Focus Group. As always, we appreciate the time you spend with us. Thanks to our friends at Deep Discount. As John alerted everybody, it's now the season for the Oscars, so be sure to catch some of the movies that are available at a great price during the award-winning film and nominee sale going on at Deep Discount. You get there by going to focusgroupradio.com and clicking on the Deep Discount logo. I picked Meryl Streep's 8 movie set that you can pick up there. John had picked Michael Clayton's It's a movie starring George Clooney, and the new release this week is The Fabelmans. And we hope all of you have a great week. And if you're on the East Coast, we're apparently going to get a little bit of a warm spell later in the week. So be sure to enjoy that. And if you're out in your car, John, you probably saw this all over the highways when you were driving this weekend.
I was stunned. Yeah. Anyway.
People texting and driving, don't do it. Don't text and drive, arrive alive. And we'll see you on TFG Unbuttoned on Tuesday. Take care.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.